I never saw God, but I absolutely knew that God was that light.
Never before in the history of mankind have you seen so many troubled spots in the world.
The thing that will trigger Armageddon is already fermenting.
From the boundaries of the universe to the depth of your soul. Embark on a journey through the unknown and unexplained as we explore mysteries, magic, and miracles. Hello and welcome. I'm Patrick Macnee. Earthquakes, fires, floods, and riots have been plaguing civilization in recent years. Why? That's a question we'll address in the next half hour, and you can draw your own conclusions. One of the greatest mysteries of life is the end of life. What does await us in the hereafter? Death is an event most people fear, or at least try to avoid as long as possible. After all, it's the last experience you'll ever have. Or is it?
We shot right into the bright light. We had no black tunnel. It was not a, it was just a very loving, loving experience.
I mean, it was the most positive experience of my entire life, but I knew I had work to do here.
You never forget it. It's a reality that's separate from here, and you are finally you. You are not bolted and halted. You're not weighed down with the personality. You're more complete.
And then my son and I went over to a curb, and we sat down and we started talking about it. I mean, we knew each other was there in it, and we just felt each other's feelings. It was hard to describe it. We felt the being's feelings, we felt our feelings. It was just like we were all there together.
With continuing advancements in medicine, it's no longer unusual for people to be brought back from death's door. To learn more about this miracle, reporter Susan O'Leary spoke with Diane Morrissey, president of the Southern California International Association of Near-Death Studies.
Diane, first of all, for everyone knows a little bit, but tell us, what is a near-death experience?
A near-death experience is when someone's physical body comes close to death. And many are straight line, the heart stops sometimes. They can go into cardiac arrest or coma or have a trauma situation to the body. But a near-death experience basically is when the physical body comes close to death.
What all does the association do?
Well, the International Association for Near-Death Studies was started by Moody and Ring and Grayson many years ago, and it was developed as a support group to help people who've had near-death experience. And now they're estimating that there's probably about 13 million near-death experiencers just in the United States alone. And these are people that are very close to death and or clinically dead and experience being out of their body and looking back and seeing probably their physical body and themselves simultaneously, two of them at the same time. I was electrocuted by my fish tank pump. When I had been cleaning it, I set my hair and had plastic curlers and metal bobby pins. I was standing on a slab floor in a puddle of water, and when I picked up the tubing to see what was wrong with the fish tank, the water squirted across my mouth, and it kind of felt like when you cut your tongue on an envelope when you lick it too fast. And when I screamed, the water rushed into my mouth and touched me on the inside of my left lip. And I felt pulled to sleep against my will. And the very first thing I did is I saw through the hallway walls, and I went and called for help. And when I went to go to the kitchen to pick up the telephone, my hand went through the receiver. And that just kind of scared me. I thought, this can't happen. And my experience was a little different in that I went through the tunnel many times back and forth. I'd come back and watch what was happening here in the house, and then I'd go through the tunnel again. And every time I did, I kind of felt like somebody was there waiting for me. And when she got close enough to me, when I finally realized it was a woman about 100 yards away, she was glowing all around her. She was dressed in white. She stood next to me and she extended her hand out like this and said, "Look there." And when I turned my head, I watched me come out of my mother's womb, and every thought, word, and deed I did for 28 years. Not 1 second of my life was missing. And I relived every emotion I'd ever felt while I was alive. She began to ask me questions about what I wanted to do. I absolutely knew that in the experience that I had a choice. I absolutely knew I could stay dead or come back. When I left the woman, I went through several other tunnels, and I came out to a place and I absolutely knew it was heaven. And it isn't anything that I was taught as a Catholic. It was so much better than any priest or nun had ever described. It couldn't come close. And I knew if I left this wonderful place, this glorious lighted place that felt like heaven, that if I left this place and walked into the light that I saw like coming from a pinprick on the wall, and it was coming through like stretching rubber bands of light. If I left where I was and walked into that other dimension, I absolutely felt I couldn't come back. I suddenly ended up back in the place with a woman, and she asked me things, billions of questions. And I knew I had the opportunity to go into this place where all this love was. I could feel it. I knew I could do that. And when I was in that dimension, that place, wherever it was, and it was like I knew God made it. And I never saw God, but I absolutely knew that God was that light. I absolutely knew that. And the entire dimension, everything that I saw was alive. And I knew that nothing ever dies. It just changes. I knew that we never die. And so I wasn't afraid to go into the light. I wanted it desperately. And yet I still wanted to touch something. And as that conflict got stronger in me, I ended up back with a woman. She'd ask me more questions. And then I went through the tunnel several times. And before I entered my body, I'm at the ceiling looking down. And I saw my body below me. And I know I'm dead. And I looked down and I said, how sad she's done so very little. And coming from a place, I'd been a professional clarinetist for 20 years, and just classical clarinetist was very important in my life. I was an office manager of a very prestigious construction firm downtown LA. My life was filled with wonderful things. And so it was, I think, my lack of ability before I died to really get close to people. My whole life changed because of this experience. And I mean, we spend our lives doing our job and thinking, well, what's the point of this? And this doesn't happen. Everything is connected to everything. Everything we do, everything we speak, everything we say is so important. I never felt that way before I died.
The phrase Age of Aquarius became popular in the 1960s during a period of great social change and spiritual exploration. Astrologers claimed that the convergence of the sun, moon, and key planets in Aquarius on February the 5th, 1962, would accelerate the progress to this era. It is predicted to last until 2160 and is characterized by enlightenment, brotherly peace, and closeness to God. Natural disasters are as much a part of life as eating and breathing, today even more so. Turn on the evening news and you'll see starving nations, wars, earthquakes, fires and floods wreaking havoc upon the earth. We're living in a fragile world where ancient prophecies of the final judgment speak loudly to us now.
One such display of deadly force occurred here in Northridge, California, just north of Los Angeles. At 4:31 a.m., an earthquake measuring 6.8 leveled a great portion of the San Fernando Valley, caused over $1 billion in damage, and took many lives. It is by far the single worst disaster to strike us in recent years.
The worldwide rate of seismic activity is about the same as it has been since the turn of the century, which is when we started really seriously monitoring it seismographically. It comes and it goes. I mean, some years are more active than others, but there's no trend up or down in the long-term data. We are talking about a magnitude 8 on the San Andreas as being likely within the next 30 to 50 years. And of course, next year is within that time, so it could happen. The numbering of the years is a human thing, and the Earth doesn't know anything about that. I mean, the Earth is going to do what it's going to do. But I don't think there's any reason to think that, scientifically speaking, that there's anything really bad in store.
Armageddon. Many biblical scholars believe we are marking our final days in existence. The book of Revelations prophesied earthquakes, wars, floods, fire, and famine as proof to our final hour.
In this particular year, we're beginning to see the end time begin. We're seeing the beginning of the end, in other words. We don't know how long that's going to be. It could be hundreds of years. No one knows. But there are many, many signs. You face north, east, south, and west, and never before in the history of mankind have you seen and witnessed so many troubled spots in the world. There's always been trouble in the world, but not with the enormity as we are witnessing today. These are all signs of the times. The Dead Sea Scrolls are a group of manuscripts, many of them rolled up very tightly, some of them on skins, some of them on parchment, and some on copper. And these are writings, according to many experts, by the Essenes, who are a special religious sect following the days of Jesus Christ. They seem to have come into their own. And the Dead Sea Scrolls represent writings which testify, in many cases, about many of the truths of the Old Testament as well as the New Testament. We have various prophecies directly from the Dead Sea Scrolls that tell about how man is going to react to certain things that happen in the last days. Of course, there's going to be earthquakes and floods and famines. We have those right now. But the Dead Sea Scrolls magnifies the fact that when all hell cuts loose on this planet for the final time, that there are a group of people, and that group is growing every day, that are going to be removed from this planet to escape those terrible things that are going to happen on the planet Earth. They're going to be raised. They're going to be taken up into the skies with God in a place that He has designated. And then after all these things have taken place on the face of the earth, including the revelation of the man of sin, whose number is 666, after his rule is completely finished and all evil forces are destroyed from this planet, and the earth itself is going to be renovated as by fire, then God's people are going to return to this planet, and then you're going to see the establishment of the kingdom of God.
Whether you believe in the scientific evaluation of a normal, changing world, or the divine intervention ending human life as we know it, a few things are for sure. Crime is rampant, people are hungry, and nations are falling apart. The fact that we as humans that have lost touch with each other, that's the real tragedy.
There are many theories about the date and events leading up to Armageddon. Some believe the end is near and that the chosen ones will ascend to heaven. Others claim that UFOs will escort the chosen few to a new world in a different galaxy. It would be a fantastic conclusion and perhaps a new beginning.
People seem to be getting anxious about what might be in the future as we approach the end of this millennium. There was a great fervor about apocalyptic things at the end of the first millennium, and now people are becoming more conscious of something ominous in the future here, because we're seeing unprecedented storms, global weather pattern changes, tremendous increase in earthquakes, a population explosion that's gone exponential. People are in an age of famine today. As one man said, most of the people who have ever lived on planet Earth are alive on planet Earth today. Armageddon is not just a battle, it's a whole war composed of many battles, but it's named after a particular hill in Israel that sits on the main trade route that connected 3 continents in that land bridge that Israel sits in the middle. And according to Daniel, chapter 11, verses 40 through 45, it gives the movement of troops, the movement of forces. The first move will be a tremendous invasion by first the southern powers, which are the Muslim powers, connected by the great power from the extreme north, which is Russia. And they will make a combined attack on the Middle East and Israel. And this will touch off two counterattacks, one coming from Europe and another coming from the East, coming from Asia. The Western forces led by Europe will wipe out the forces of Russia and the Muslims. And then the last part of this tremendous campaign will be between the forces of Asia and the Western forces led by Europe. And it shows how that there will be a tremendous loss of life. You know, I don't know a specific date, but I believe we're already in the general time of it. The thing that will trigger Armageddon is already fermenting, and that is the dispute between the Muslim powers and Israel over who owns Jerusalem. But I think what's unique about today is, first of all, the most important part to all prophecy about the return of Christ and its nearness is the rebirth of the state of Israel after it had been scattered all over the world and persecuted. With the rebirth of the state of Israel, May 14th, 1948, prophecy began a countdown, I believe. And then, for the first time in history, not just a piece or two of the prophetic scenario began to fit, but all of the pieces. Not only is Israel in place, but earthquakes did begin to increase in frequency and intensity. We saw a population explosion, which guaranteed famines. We do see a great increase in ethnic wars with each other. We do see an increase in war in general. We do see global weather pattern changes. And what's important about this is they're all happening in concert, not just one at a time.
There were futures that Edgar Cayce, to give you an example, saw back in the 1930s and 40s, in which he said the western part of the United States would break up and go into the ocean and what have you. But he has been consistently wrong in his predictions and prognostications since 1972. And that is no fault of his as a sensitive, and should not cast any aspersions on his ability as probably one of the supreme psychics or seers of the 20th century. What it should point out is the fact that humanity itself is starting to get the message, that humanity itself is starting to learn and starting to grow and starting to become more and more powerful, that has forcibly changed these prophecies and the predictions. The reason I wrote my book, The Millennium Factor, and the reason I put a lot of the other things that I do on hold is because I saw these things coming. I knew they were coming not only from my studies of Nostradamus and my studies of the pyramid and from my own personal psychic visions, that I saw it coming. And I thought it was my purpose right now at this point in time to begin to educate people before it begins, to show them that there are things that they can do to stop these things from happening. The many geological changes that are going to occur in the United States are necessary now to begin to change the political structure. We simply cannot continue with the political structure we have, which is based on centralization, oppression of human beings, the power both economically, politically, and industrially in the hands of a few over the many. And these geological changes will literally be the only thing that will begin to break up the structure of the world in such a way that mankind will now have the unique opportunity over a 2,000-year span, for the first time in many thousands of years, to be able to completely recreate society as we know it, to completely recreate society based on the concepts of truth and enlightenment and justice. And so all of these natural catastrophes have a silver lining to them as well, because they will begin to break up these structures that have been based on oppression, fear, and obsolescence, and allow us to create this new world. I see humanity continuing for many, many thousands of years. We are simply entering a pre-millennial phase now, where when we talk about the millennium of the 1,000 years of peace and the reign of a Christ-knowing one on earth, we're looking at the birth, according to the Great Pyramid, of this messianic figure coming between the years 2034 and 2039. And it is my opinion that with the birth of this messianic figure, we enter into a pre-millennial phase of another 500-year cycle, where we'll have a number of messiahs. We'll have a number of these spiritual leaders, these spiritual kings, so to speak, across the planet. For 500 years, we get to do it ourselves, from the year 2500 to the year 3000. And then from the year 3000 onwards, I believe that the last part of the book of Revelation, where the four-squared city of Jerusalem comes down from the sky and welcomes us into an intergalactic federation, a brotherhood of planets, if you will, where we trade back and forth with other stars, and the Nostradamian prediction that our children's children's children will actually inhabit in colonies the constellation of Aquarius and Cancer, that mankind has a vast, magnificent, marvelous, magical future ahead of it. And that now this is just the stumbling block where it's almost like the little chick is beginning to break out of the egg. And there'll be some ugliness, and there'll be some blood, and there'll be some pain, which accompanies any birth of anything new and anything glorious.
The strange events happening in the world envelop our lives and often seem to control them. The mind can be seen as a vessel with limitless capacity. It's up to each one of us to allow that vessel to be filled. I'm Patrick Macnee. Join us next time for more mysteries, magic, and miracles.